Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you. In Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful April the 30th, 2019, Grando Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I think my body's still leaking air and all that. I had to go to the hospital today and deal with some blood tests and a CT scan.
Yep.
And I got poked so much I felt like a pincushion. I walked out of there, I thought I had a flat tire in my car, but it was air coming out of my body.
Well, hopefully only air comes out of the body in two places, Big C. Hopefully those places are still working. I do want to say it's all good and love and war. It might have been those Thin Mint cookies you were eating on yesterday. You ever think about that, Big C? Be careful, read the ingredients. A lot going on in the sports universe. NBA basketball and the officiating is all over the map. In fact, it's all over the universe. Let the officials do their game. We don't need robots calling games. Also, I know football is still a lot of talk about who got drafted, who went where. Some kids will change their lives, and I know NHL is taking a couple of days off, but Major League Baseball is in full swing. We'll try to bring it all to you on Big C Sports. And I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, would you believe? Now, I told you about yesterday, when you go to the doctor, they always ask two things. The first one is, do you have insurance? Okay, that's POTUS. We know POTUS is trying to do away with that. And then they ask you, how much do you weigh? But what is all this air? You said there was a lot of air in the doctor's office. You said they had the air conditioner on. What was it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I went through all of that today. You know, they wanted my ID. They wanted my insurance card. After they did all that, then they asked me to step on the scale. Think about it. They won't weigh you unless you have insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess if you break the scale, they want to know that it's going to be paid for.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to go through that demeaning in.
Yeah. It's all part of love and war, Big C. We know that it's all good. So did you survive the test, Big C? That's what I want to ask you. So, Big C, did you survive the test? I think we have a little static. Was there gas on the line, or are you still at the doctor's office, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I survived the test. You know, they looked at the insurance card and said, okay, it's good, it's not a fraud.
Yeah.
And so they put me on the scale, and it said to be continued.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I guess that meant that we would continue on with the test and everything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we got all these women walking in with these needles. And I'm like, you only need one. and you know, I got poked 4 times before they could find a vein. I got veins that look like pencils.
Yeah.
And the lady couldn't find the proper vein. She said, well, I don't want to hit the big ones because they're too dense.
Yeah.
I said, I would rather that you go at the one you can see instead of the one that you're guessing over.
Yeah, don't be
So
guessing.
after they took a half pint of blood and everything and put an IV for the CT scan that I had to do,
Yeah.
you know, I survived and I made it home and passed out.
Well, I think it's all fair in love and war. And for anyone who doesn't want Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, what do you have when you go to your own doctor, especially if you have children? It's important that we all get our checkups, so good job on that, Big C. I want to say today is April 30th. It's known as National Honesty Day, and it started in the mid-1990s. It was to urge all politicians, and maybe even mainstream society, to be honest. Now, this word, I can't verify it, but I'm hearing that POTUS wants to veto that National Honesty Day, and he wants to rescind or redact the whole thing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I guess we should speak out about the White House when we talk about National Honesty Day.
Yeah.
I mean, because it hasn't been one day that they've been that way.
Yeah, I think that's funny when you start telling people to tell the truth. I'm going to give a little plug. There's a TV show. It's on a network, and I'm hooked on it. It comes on Monday night. It's called The Fix. It's about a...
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Monday Night Football.
Oh, no, that might be Fix too, Big C. But it's called The Fix, and it's based really on, Marcia Clark, Christopher Darden, O.J. Simpson, Johnny Cock. It's based on that. You can see the resemblance of it. Now, it's about an athlete, and athletes get all the fame. They can get accused of anything. And according to media, they're always guilty because they were accused. They must be guilty because, why? Because I saw it on TV. Well, this guy's innocent, but they're framing him. The point of the story is, I saw this program, and I think it's on Fox. They have more people of color in this new television program, and it's pretty gripping. They have more people of color in this television program, really, than we have under the Trump administration. And I just want to get your feeling why, for an athletic feature, it's an athletic genre with law, etc., they open the door for more people of color for movies that deal with the criminal justice system as opposed to people in the White House. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's how society looks at things. When African Americans are more involved in the criminal justice system than mainstream society. So it's easy to put a program up there and have it depicted with minorities in it and have the belief. If you look at the Fox crowd, as far as their demo, it's mainly mainstream America that follows that station.
Yeah.
So if you put African Americans in a negative light, it's going to seem more realistic.
Wow. Yep. And I thought that same thing. Even though it is gripping, it is very good television. I'm not advertising for them, but I'm just realizing sometimes when you look up, there's a movie, a TV show called Cheers, and they had a theme song. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And also, sometimes you want to go where you can at least see people who look like you. I know you traveled all over the world, Big C. Does it? And I want to get your thought, because I want to finish up this thought on what we're seeing now and contrast that with what's happening, in the NFL or even NBA. When you travel outside of the country and you see other black people, it doesn't mean they're from the United States of America. Oftentimes they're all over Europe and, of course, Africa and South America. Do people have that same type of kinship when you're outside of the country that you may have when you're in a rural area here and you see someone with the same complexion? Your thoughts?
Well, I think when you're traveling in other countries, and I've been to many, just because you see someone of the same skin complexion of you, and they don't speak the same language normally. You can be in Germany and you're going to see, German Africans, as you would say.
Yeah.
So, they speak broken English. They speak German as their first language.
Yeah.
Whether you're in France, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in Rio de Janeiro, just because of the complexion is the same. The geographical makeup and biological is not the same. So we see people in this country, and when we go elsewhere, people don't always gravitate to us.
Yeah.
That's not their MO. I mean, they will say hi and they'll be cordial.
Yeah.
But they have no need to gravitate to us because they have lives in their own country where they may be carefree.
Yep. And I know even my friends who've been in Canada, and they talk about, the first time I heard someone say that was Rocket Ismail, and who played football for Notre Dame, and he went up and played in Canada. And I remember he was on a TV show, this about 2.5, 3 decades ago, and he was saying how when in Canada they don't see color. I'm sure everybody sees something, but I've met people from Canada, and they were just as cordial to me, and mostly down in Las Vegas when I'm there, but they were very cordial. But I want to get your thoughts too. I know we'll touch on some NBA basketball. Isaiah Thomas is his birthday, so happy birthday, Isaiah Thomas. And NBA Hall of Famer. I think he was snubbed from an Olympic team, and that was a shame, but it happened. But he also is responsible for the Toronto Raptors being in Toronto. And the thing I bring up is because there's so many African Americans that are more than just athletes. Like, look at what we're doing. We're not in a uniform anymore, but there's so much that can be accomplished when you create the opportunity that sometimes they take it from you, or the mainstream won't give it to you, especially if they've already given it to one. Give me your feeling on the growth of African Americans, or even Africans, or Black Americans, or Black people outside of the country, how maybe sometimes there's less resistance. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the only country that I've ever been in where there's so much enmity towards a race of people.
Yeah.
This leads all the way back to slavery when you think about how much black people have been fought against from day one. I mean, even the fight against freedom for black people.
Yeah.
And to have black, symbols and statues taken down by white society. I mean, when we look at all the meanness and wrong and cruelty that's been done by whites in America. All the talk with the president about Andrew Jackson's, statue and General Lee's statue.
Yeah, General Lee.
And he was a traitor against America, and he was captured. Since the president says he doesn't like people who were captured, he was captured. you think about Andrew Jackson, as I was speaking, whose face is on the $20 bill.
Yeah,
was one of the most cruel Americans in history. You think about. He was the reason that the Native Americans were wiped out.
Yeah.
He sent white troops to wipe out the Native Americans.
Yeah.
He also was a slave owner as well as a president.
Yeah.
And yet his face is on the $20 bill, and he's recognized and respected every day for the meanness that he put towards African Americans. But when you think about black people in America versus black people around the world, they don't suffer the same racism that we suffer in other countries around the world that's here in America.
Right.
They don't have voter oppression against black people in those other countries.
Yeah.
They don't have that. They don't have a higher incarceration rate of black people in those other countries. They're not targeted by law enforcement.
No.
So only in America, as they would say, only in America are black people treated as third-class citizens.
And it was also that same President Jackson, when Lincoln was assassinated, we were supposed to be giving 40 acres and a mule to every African American that was in that system in the South. And then Jackson vetoed the bill and gave that land back to white landowners. So
not only that, he took away the voting rights that African American males obtained after the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
African American men were allowed to vote in America.
Yeah.
Jackson took those voting rights away, and they stayed away for 100 years before black males were able to vote again.
Yeah, and that's why we tell people to read. Don't just be hoodwinked and infatuated with someone who's wearing a jersey. There's a room for intelligent people. Like I hear people say all the time, man, you guys talk a lot of politics, and I just say we're for smart people who read. And anybody can read. First graders read, kindergartners read. But I just want to make sure, because I heard another man on television, and he played pro ball, and he played for the Patriots in the Super Bowl. He was a tight end, and I can't remember his name, but I know he played in the game when they beat the Falcons, and he just retired. And he wrote a children's book, and he was being interviewed on the mothership. And I said, you recall that, Big C?
Martellus Bennett.
That brother's amazing. And I was saying, there are a lot of people out there. He thinks just like Big C Sports. And I appreciate seeing that compared to a lot of people who dumb down their intelligence just so mainstream can feel okay. It's okay if you tell people the truth. Again, April 30th is National Honesty Day, and those are some honest facts I wanted to bring up. Big C, when we look at the world of NHL, I know people are off. They're going to start resuming later in the week. Everything's about baseball with all the empty seats, and then NBA basketball. But I still want to close out today's program talking about the draft. I will pay homage to the St. Louis Blues. They take a 2-1 series lead over the Dallas Stars with a 4-3 victory. The winning goal was scored with a minute 38 seconds left on the clock. St. Louis and that whole Midwest going through some issues with weather issues, flooding, etc. Thoughts and prayers with those families, all in the Midwest region along the Mississippi. Give me your feeling on what you would like to say to those people, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, when we talk about the suffering that many Americans have gone through, and you think about that Mississippi River Delta, that is the heartstring of America when you talk about farms.
Yeah.
You think about the farmers that feed America and really the world, with their grain products and things in that nature that have been flooded out.
Yep.
And the loss that they're going to, suffer with. I know that the White House has said, we don't have global warming.
Yeah.
And so, this excess water is coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
I guess you would tell those people that are suffering, that have lost everything that they had, that there's no global warming. And, matter of fact, just call your creditors. They'll understand that you don't have the money to pay your bills.
Yeah, that's very true. And we know they don't understand at all. So I'm just going to say again, sports, I was talking to another person from a different industry. Has nothing to do with sports. This boy, he's a good old boy, older gentleman, but he loved talking about sports, even though he's not a sports guy. He's more into the clergy. And he said, Charlton, sports does galvanize people. He can get people to talk to each other when they start talking about a team where they may not want to bring up politics. They definitely don't want to bring up religion. But what is it about the universe that shows sports, Big C, where people try to defeat their opponent? if you're in the religious sector, you're not trying to defeat another denomination. If you're in politics, yes, competitive. But a lot of politicians, once they vote for separate groups, different parties, they can still break bread. But sports, you have people in the same family that don't like each other based on not liking that team, though they love each other. How does sports bring us together? And it's universal. It's not just here in the United States. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, took this theme from music, Charlton. When you think about music is universal.
Yeah.
Sports has become universal. You know, most sports are played around the world when we start with the real football, soccer.
Yep.
You look at baseball, hockey. These sports are universal. They're all around the world. Skiing. You know, so many sports, bowling, that allow people to interact with each other. You don't have to speak the same language, but you understand what the meaning of the game is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I'm watching soccer, I prefer to watch it in Spanish.
Yeah.
Because it's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if they score a goal, that lasts for 2 minutes, you know, as far as enunciation of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you look at sports, it brings people together. When you go to a stadium, and I know you're out there in California, and, you know, Southern California has a huge Hispanic and Asian population.
Yeah.
When you go to an arena or a ballpark down in Los Angeles, it's a multicultural event. You know, you might see 50 different nationalities in one of those venues.
Yeah.
And that's because the sport, everybody understands it. And it's a neutral zone.
Yeah.
It's a zone where you can be yourself, you can say things, and you're not fear of anybody.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying the event regardless of your gender or nationality, Joe.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, NHL playoffs coming up this week. Boston Bruins at the Columbus Blue Jackets and the San Jose Sharks at the Colorado Avalanche. And still, you know, the official thing, and we'll talk about that more. I really want to get your thoughts on it, how it's affecting all leagues. I think it might be a distraction because there's so much betting going on. The Supreme Court, a lot of your friends, Big C, they decided to make it legal. And when you start messing with people and their money, then it causes problems. Whether you're doing it the right way or the underground way, it still causes problems. But we know hockey has had issues, NFL's had issues, and the NBA's having some issues. So we hope that we can clear all that up. But I just want to get your feeling. It can't be a good thing when we're always blaming the officials for something, Big C, because this gambling thing, and we know people have gone to jail for it. I don't think it's fair when a certain official's name is publicized and they have no fact based on their opinion. Does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's always the media that gives you the insight, whether it's good or bad, about the officials, what you're getting on television and on a lot of talk radio shows.
Yeah.
They're the ones singling out the officials. The league doesn't do that. The league has always felt that they would put the most appropriate officials in whatever venue that's going on that night. Right. Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, track and field, gymnastics, whatever, boxing. You know, it's the media who is pointing out the official. That official is an anonymous person, realistically. You see a number on his back. You don't see a name tag. On any official, on any sport you've ever seen, you've never seen a name tag.
No.
You see a number of the ones who wear those. It is always the media who is pointing that out. So is it the media, the broadcasters that are doing the specific events, that have money wagered on it, that are the ones that are upset? Because they're the ones pointing the arrow at the official. They're making them the villain. The official goes out there and does his job. And he does his job based on what the league believes. The league has put the best suited individual in each game that's being played because he fits that matchup and is based on what he's done, his credibility throughout the season. That's how they get these postseason appointments. But the media is the one who is always bringing this to the table. This official, this official. We should leave the officials anonymous. The media should never bring up an official's name during the game. I think all the broadcast companies should ban that. That you can single out this official, because over the years, not just now, there have been officials that have gotten death threats. I remember there was a series between the Kansas City Royals and St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series, where an official blew a call at first base, but the media talked about him so much during the broadcast, he had death threats. He actually had to move from his house. So this has been going on not just now, but for decades. But because of social media, and everybody can Google somebody and find out where they live, they're putting these officials in peril because they're constantly wanting to mention their names throughout broadcasts.
I think what you just said is so serious that, and I know it's serious because you know there's an underground to the sports betting. It's not just someone walking into a place in Nevada or wherever else. They can do it on their phones now. There are people who can get hurt in life because somebody put their life savings in something. And you know how knee-jerk reaction people are, Big C. We've seen that with POTUS and his knee-jerk reaction from people. I love what you just said. People always talk about an athlete being stalked. No excuse for domestic violence. An official's not a robot. They're doing the best they can. Let's say 99% of them. There's always some room for some knucklehead to do something foolish. But what would be your message? And I think you just gave it, but I think it's worth repeating. Your message to the commissioners is quit putting these officials in the bullseye of some drunk, riled up person who's being told by some organization, aka the Houston Rockets did some study and they found 81 cases of someone blowing a call. They ever point the mirror at themselves? No. But if you can repeat again the seriousness of not making these officials villains, they have families too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they are human beings. I mean, you look at all the vitriol that came from that New Orleans Saints Los Angeles Rams playoff game.
Yeah.
The threats that some of those officials got by not making a call. They're human. They have a reaction. Sometimes they just don't always see. You might be blinking.
Yeah.
But the broadcast networks and the leagues need to have an alliance to not be pointing out the officials by name.
I agree.
That's the problem. Just say the call was made.
Yeah.
You don't have to say the individual's name. You can say his number.
Right.
But you know, the problem is that the broadcast networks are making all these officials too vulnerable, regardless of the sport. You know, you see an umpire behind the plate at a Major League Baseball. You don't see his face.
No.
He has a mask on.
Yep.
But they make sure that they highlight his face when they pull that mask off. They tell you his name 27 times throughout the broadcast.
Yep.
So if he's blowing a call, that you know who he is, so you can Google it, and everybody will Google now just
Yep.
because you got everybody Googling.
Yep.
So I'm going to put you culpable in some of this stuff because you got people Googling. But the problem is that the officials put too much emphasis on the officiating. All these broadcasters put too much emphasis on the official's name. They make it personal. It is not personal. They're doing a job. Whenever a broadcaster screw up, even you or I, they don't sit there and point themselves out when they say they make a mistake or they make a misannunciation of something.
Exactly.
They do this all the time. They blow situations throughout games all the time. But they put the emphasis on the official, making them a villain, villainizing them, making them in danger as well as their family members, Charlton.
Yep.
And it's going to happen, you know, sooner than later.
Yep.
That some official is going to run into the peril of some anguished fan or something because some broadcasters pointed them out, and they're going to say, well, it's not affiliated with the broadcast. Yes, it is, because you let the public know who this individual was.
Well, you've even told me as a big guy and a broadcaster, you've had even sometime an athlete, and we've heard it talked about lately on the news, and I, you know, they just talk about it because it's real. But sometime an athlete wants to challenge a guy when they're outside of the arena, whether it's after that game or sometime later in the season. I don't like what you said about me. You know, let's throw blows. Like, why throw blows if you're rich? Just call 911 if some knucklehead wants to hit you. Just fall to the ground, fake like you're hurt, knocked out. Call 911 and take them to court like smart people do. But I think that's so important that we got to hope that the commissioners get off of this story about naming officials who blew a call. You know, there's a bad world out there also, and they don't play straight, Big C. I want to just bring up a couple of things tonight before we get heavy into the NBA, and then also with the NFL draft. I just want to run down some schedules tonight for a major. A lot of games are already underway. St. Louis at Washington, Detroit at Philadelphia, Cincinnati at New York Mets, Oakland at Boston. What a great historical series there. Cleveland at Miami, San Diego at Atlanta, and then Colorado at Milwaukee. Big C, I know when you think about Milwaukee, that's a team that can hit home runs like handshakes. Colorado Rockies, they play up in the high altitude, but they're at Milwaukee now in the dome, so may not have as many home runs. Give me your feeling again. You know, Milwaukee had a chance to go all the way to last year to the World Series. They came up short. Looks like they're on the same path again to greatness. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, they're the best team in the Central Division in the National League, and they have some hot bats. You know, this is a team that's very unselfish.
Yep.
They play great team ball. I mean, traditional baseball. And the greatest thing about Milwaukee is that you don't have pressure on you because you're not in the major media market. So the rest of the country is not beating up on you all the time. So you can quietly sneak through your schedule and all of a sudden end up in first place.
Yeah, and I just hate the fact that they have a dome up there. If the Green Bay Packers can play outside, why can't they for the Major League Baseball? So Houston at Minnesota, Pittsburgh at Texas, New York is at Arizona, the Yankees at Arizona, the LA Dodgers at San Francisco, the best rivalry on the West Coast, Toronto at the Los Angeles Angels, and then Chicago's at Seattle. Seattle still doing things. And then a matchup game, you have Baltimore at Chicago, the White Sox. I want to get a feeling, also Tampa Bay at Kansas City. I want to get a feeling as we go back to the world of basketball. And you think about contracts. Texas Tech head coach Chris Beard, he became the third highest paid coach in men's college basketball. Big C, he agreed to a 6-year extension with Texas Tech after making the NCAA's finals in the men's tournament. Now, he's not you think of the Big 12, you think of Bill Self as being the guy that should make more money than anybody, but I'm still happy that Texas Tech is going to get a guy that they can hopefully keep. But if they keep him and they get back to where they were last year, there may be a bigger program that comes and tries to buy them out. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, normally when you get these huge contract extensions, bigger programs don't come in because it's going to cost the coach money,
too much
as
money,
well as it's going to cost that recruiting program money. But when you think about Beard and what he's done down there at Texas Tech, this is a dream situation for him. He's built this program and got it to where it is. He originally started as an assistant under Bobby Knight, and then Bobby Knight's son when he took over, and then he's the third generation of that coaching staff that is taking place down there at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
But to bring a team from the ashes, basically, when Bobby Knight took over and got them to the men's championship game in the Final Four, that's an elite status.
Yeah.
And so to go out and even wanted to start over in another program, and you look at where Beard is now, he's only following your buddy, down there in Kentucky.
Yeah. Calipari.
As far as money goes, I know you'll probably be down to Kentucky Derby with him this week.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you got Krzyzewski and Duke also as number 2.
Yeah.
But coaches want to be paid for accomplishments.
Yeah.
You can stay in a place. You look at Krzyzewski, who's been in Duke forever.
Yeah.
In that small arena, Cameron Indoor Arena, that seats 8,000 people.
Yeah.
Versus being down in Lubbock where you can seat 17,000.
Yeah.
Nobody has what Calipari has up in Kentucky with 24,000.
Yeah, 24,000.
To establish a program and you be the man, you're recognized everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get comfortable with that.
Yeah, you can get comfortable with that. And I'm just happy for him. No one really thought much about Texas Tech's program. I think they were picked 7th in the preseason in the Big 12, and to get to the Final Four, I think that's amazing. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. What we're going to do, Big C, is get heavy into some basketball and then some NFL talk after we take this quick Big C pause. We will be back in just a moment. All right, Big C, we are back on the Big C Sports Show. You can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio app, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and also Comcast Xfinity. So we thank you for the growth of Big C Sports. I want to tell you something that's funny to me. I know you Southern boys down south. I don't know how this little critter got away from you guys because you eat everything. This little gecko that's on this commercial for Geico Insurance, I saw this little green gecko. It was going to the movies. It was going to go see Endgame, the Marvel movie with all the great Marvel comics, and he was trying to, snap his hands like Thanos. So he said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, wow, if I could just get my hands on some Infinity Stones, then I could snap my fingers with this golden vibranium glove and rule the universe. Well, he said he could bend reality. When he snapped his fingers, he heard Big C Sports. And I just want to say, even geckos are following Big C Sports. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, often when we catch a hold from you, we use those for fishing. The fish love them. Little green buddy trying to get away in the water, he don't last long.
Yeah, that guy, he's absolutely funny. And I think sometimes if you ever want to laugh, that guy gets more commercials He's almost like Eddie Murphy. You know how Eddie Murphy hired himself for a lot of his own movies where he didn't have to go out and pay a lot of other people? I think the Gecko's taken over and taken jobs from a lot of people, but I really love watching that guy. I want to get into some NBA talk. The 76ers, they evened the series versus the Raptors last night, 94-89 up in Toronto, and there's something about Embiid, whether he's healthy or not, he really gives them a chance to play, and Toronto had some costly turnovers in the end. But give me your feeling on where that series is. They're tied at 1 now. Your thoughts?
You know, I still like Toronto in that series. You know, you win a game, you lose a game. It's tied going to Philly. Basically, Philly has home court advantage.
Yeah.
But Toronto has too many weapons. Kawhi Leonard didn't have a hot night. That really hurt them when you look at what Toronto, Siakam was doing what he normally does.
Yeah.
But Philly had a must-needed win. Can they be consistent? They just haven't had the outside shooting. And if you look at that game, that was a very low-scoring game, a defensive battle, which played into Philly's hands because they can't run up and down the floor with Toronto. If Toronto's playing their basketball, this series ends in 6.
You think about the Nuggets. They showed dominance over the Portland Trail Blazers last night. Up in Denver, the altitude is over 5,200 feet, I believe, and a 121-113 victory over Denver. I was asking you if you thought that maybe Damian Lillard had too much time off. You know, they have a great backcourt. Even Steph Curry shoots the ball well up there, too. But I think the Joker, he's actually a lot better than a lot of people think. And, you know, the NBA is Afrocentric. It really is. So you could be a player that's dominant, and if you're a white player that's dominant, they try to see, is he as good as Larry Bird? No, he's not as good as Larry Bird. But I think if he played in a bigger media market, maybe in LA or in New York, I just want to get your opinion. Would he be more of a household name? And of course, he hasn't won a championship. But I like his game, Big C. I want to get your thoughts on him.
Jokic, you know, reminds me of a big man that used to play in Portland, Sabonis.
Yeah.
And he's a little more athletic. Sabonis' legs were gone by the time he got to the NBA.
Yeah.
But when I look at Jokic is a 7-2 point guard. I know everybody talks about Giannis in Milwaukee. But the offense goes through Jokic when you get to Denver.
Yeah.
Everything. Whether he's the best passing big man in the game.
Yeah.
You got to realize he was second in the league in triple doubles this past season.
Yep.
That's how much he touches the ball and everybody relies on him. But, you know, his game is not just one-dimensional. Yeah, and that's the difference. When you see so many big men now in the NBA, they have one-dimensional games.
Yeah.
They don't have an outside shot, they have an inside shot. Or they have an outside shot, inside shot, no outside shot.
Yeah.
He's a multifaceted player, and he's unflappable. When you look at him, emotion doesn't take over him when he's in a game.
No.
You see so many people want to jaw with the referee, jaw with opponents. He's just out there, look, I'll do it again. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's what a professional athlete should do. Don't spend your time jawing with the referees and having the media call them out. Go out there and do your game. You know what you're supposed to do when you're on the court. Everybody spends so much time trying to be noticed, and Jokic is just sneaking points and rebounds in on everybody.
Does he remind you at all of Bill Walton when he played back in the day for the Trailblazers as opposed to when he played for the Celtics because his knees were pretty gone, but he still played? Does he remind you at all of him, maybe a thicker version of how the great Bill Walton played? Your thoughts?
No, Arvydas Sabonis, who played in Portland. I mean, he reminds me so much of him.
Yeah.
You know, same type of size, 7'2", European player, and just dominant, who understands the game. They learn the fundamentals of the game before they come to the U.S.
Yeah.
When you look at big men who grow up here in the U.S., they want to be highlight players. They watched all this on the news and sports shows all the time.
Yeah.
Of guys making Sports Center. You know, European players learn to play fundamental basketball from day one.
Yeah.
That's how they play the game. And when you look at Jokic, he's the most fundamentally sound big man in the game. And I haven't seen that since Arvydas Sabonis when he played in Portland.
Yeah, I really like his play and would love to just see him play well because he's really earned it. He has a lot of baby fat on him, kind of like Charles Barkley back in the day. Not good as Charles Barkley, but definitely a good player. Can Kyrie Irving lead the Boston Celtics up to Milwaukee again and leave with a 2-0 score, on the score? If they can take that series 2-0 back to Boston, I would say it's over. I know the game's already underway. We don't like to give scores for people that may be, taping things to go back and watch it at home. But I know when you think about how good Giannis is, and I felt from what I saw with Giannis in Game 1, it reminded me of how the Detroit Bad Boys, with Lane Bear and them good old boys, Isaiah Thomas included with that, how they beat up Michael Jordan, where you talk about fouls being called and not called. They were like playing football, and I thought Horford maybe intimidated Giannis, or maybe, is that too soon to say that, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this was a great defensive performance by Boston. They took away all the lane penetration from the Bucks. And that's been their mainstay throughout the season and the playoffs, getting into the paint. And when you have 11 blocks against your opponent, that means you're playing defense. You're stopping everything inside. You're taking away second chance shots. And that's what Boston did. Milwaukee, their outside shot betrayed them in this game. And so they tried to get to the basket, and there was nowhere to go. So I like the form of defense that Boston played in this game, led by Horford. But Kyrie Irving, this is a guy who can get his shot off anywhere they can. And I love the media. Now they're kissing up to Kyrie. When they were saying earlier in the year that he was out of there, that he was a cancer to the lineup, that they were better off without him when he was missing games. But ironically, they're 5-0 in the playoffs with him in, trying to go 6-0 tonight.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'd like to see. I'm pulling for Milwaukee just because I think Giannis maybe had some. It's like Mike Tyson said, everybody is tough until they get into the ring and get punched in the face, right? So maybe he'll get his second win under him, and I think he'll play the way he's supposed to play. The series that I really want to get your thoughts on is Golden State. They're at home tonight for the Game 2 versus the Houston Rockets. They had a 104-100 win in Game 1. And I'm more apt to believe Coach Kerr over D'Antoni. If you got eyes and you can see, Harden and Paul, they fall down a lot. They flop a lot. And people can say, well, they've been doing it all year. Yeah, it doesn't make it right. And no matter what they're saying, both teams can have calls that were not made. But when Steph Curry is being pushed around the field or around the court like they're playing football or hockey, and he's the one who ends up with 5 fouls. That doesn't make sense. And then you've had Thompson in trouble. You've had, Durant foul out in the Clippers series, different series but same floor. I know that this game tonight, do you feel that some of the officials may have an overreaction to all the criticism? And the NBA would rather see a 7-game series, not a 5-1 win by Golden State. You're feeling your thoughts?
No, I don't think that there'll be an overreaction by the officials in this game. I think the officials are going to make Houston play stand-up basketball. They understand that they can't go into this game and expect to get these flop calls. They're going to have to deal with a game of verticality. And there's a veteran crew in tonight. And I know that the Houston Rockets have had some troubles with these officials personally. But the game is not personal. If you're playing the game of basketball the way the game of basketball is supposed to be played, then the officials are a non-factor in a contest. And there's been too much emphasis in every sporting event about the officiating. What happened to the days when we just sit down and watch the game? I don't think this series will go 7 this year. I think it will end in 5. That's just my personal thoughts on it. But the Golden State Warriors are a much better team than people have given them credit for. They did not play hard all year long because they knew it wasn't about getting to the end of the regular season being in first place. It was about finishing healthy. That's what they wanted to do. If you look at the number of games that this team has played over the last 5 years, they've run themselves into the ground. So they had to save some time, some legs for the playoffs. And I think now, because you can defer to anybody on this Golden State roster, when you look at their starting 5, any of them can lead you in scoring. But, everything goes through Durant. He defers to everybody else. And the players on this team are unselfish, so they don't mind when one of them is not the leading scorer.
Let me just get your feeling, and then I want to get into just your thoughts on how the NFL panned out in some drafts. But I think you like basketball more in the 80s. Detroit Bad Boys, when Jordan was doing his thing. The Lakers are running with the team that had, what they call it in LA. It was always about Showtime in LA. Those were physical games. I remember when Barkley had a fight with I think he had a fight with Bird. I think Barkley, Dr. J had fights. The Lakers had fights with the Celtics. People were hitting each other. I mean, fist fights. Not, hey, someone touched me, I'm going to flop and call a foul. The way those games were played back in the 80s, they wouldn't complain about this little ticky-tack faking the funk foul that we have now. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, basketball has changed like all professional sports. It's wanting to become more fan attractive.
Yeah.
It's all about scoring points. That's what the leagues are looking at. When basketball was going, in the early years when they had no three-point shot.
Yeah.
When you think about all the records that Wilt were setting, George Gervin winning scoring titles, averaging 30-plus points a game with two-point shots.
Yeah.
It was a wide-open game. The physicality was there. But that's what professional sports has always been about, physicality. Now they don't want you to be as physical. They want everything to be wide open and scoring. And that's what the Houston Rockets got accustomed to, getting generous calls throughout the year. And so when you talk about those teams of the 80s and 90s, the physicality of them, look at the Houston Rockets, how much they ran up and down the floor. They were physical. The Dream, with the Dream Shake, was a phenomenal offensive player. But he could also get physical down in the paint. As they talked about the Detroit Bad Boys being a physical team, but they scored points. I mean, you bring Microwave Johnson off the bench, it was all over, lights out. So these teams, yes, they were physical, but they were athletic and scoring geniuses also. But they knew how to play the game. The games have taken the physicality, whether it's football, hockey, basketball, baseball, they've taken the physicality out of professional sports.
Well, I hope, and again, if you're in Houston, everything is a foul. If you're in Oakland, everything is a non-call. So you can't make the fans happy. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. The Golden State Warriors have everything at their advantage, but if you're Houston, you still have a fighter's chance and a shooter's chance. It just seems if Golden State has all their players firing on all cylinders, they seem unstoppable. Big C, I know I want to wish them well tonight, but I want to finish today's show in the last 20-plus minutes. I want to get your thoughts, kind of the 2019 Big C's NFL team-by-team draft, and I'll just throw you some teams, and I want to get your feeling. I know you're not using teleprompters, you're not using some research staff, and you don't have people telling you what to say, but you've done the game and you know the history of the sports as much as anybody I've ever come across. I want to just get your feeling, kind of your grade on what you saw happen in the last 20 minutes. Let's go with the Arizona Cardinals. Give me your feeling on how you think they did. What grade did they earn on Big C's report?
Well, this was a team who had the number one pick overall. They picked Kyler Murray, an electrifying young quarterback out of Oklahoma. You think about back-to-back number one overall draft picks coming out of that university, quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. They also drafted some weapons to go along with Kyler Murray to ease him into the NFL. You're drafting three receivers that are going to be, making his life and his transition into the league a big one, and this was a team that finished last in the league. I don't see them finishing last in the league this year, Joe.
Let me go down south. We're going to start with two birds. When you guys see birds flying down south, do they normally make their landing or do they end up on the dinner table? Your thoughts? Atlanta Falcons.
It depends on how close he is to the buckshot.
Atlanta Falcons. I know Arthur Blank has so much money down there. Started Home Depot, founder of Home Depot. Has the soccer team down there, the new stadium, the Falcons seem to be doing everything. They made Matt Ryan one of the highest paid players in the NFL, but I know he's not happy with the results. What's Big C's thoughts on the NFL draft for the Atlanta Falcons?
The Atlanta Falcons, raised a lot of eyebrows with their draft. You go out and you draft two offensive linemen in the first round where your needs are on defense. You got an offense that can score with anybody. And you draft two offensive linemen, plus you sign three offensive linemen, during the offseason, three veterans. So this was a head scratcher in Atlanta. And so, even if you give them a draft grade, I only give them a C- on a draft grade.
Let me take you further up north. My goodness, you believe in threes? There's also a raven, which is a bird, on the side of the helmet for the Baltimore Ravens. Do you like raven, or do you prefer cardinal or falcon? Which one tastes better on the dinner table, Big C?
Well, it all depends on what they're feasting on throughout the year. But, when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, they did a revamping of their offense last year with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And so they needed to bring in some weapons to fit his talent set. And they brought in Marquise Brown out of Oklahoma, Miles Boykin. They brought him in, and Justice Hill. They brought in some offensive weapons to complement their quarterback. So you're going to always have a stern defense in Baltimore. Now they got the tools offensively to go along with the young quarterback and grow and develop together.
Well, I know the NFL is full of carnivores. We have the Buffalo Bills. I know people eat buffalo. way up in the Northeast. They have a team they're still trying to find their way. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the NFL draft for the Buffalo Bills. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they feel they got their quarterback of the future last year when they picked your friend out of Wyoming. But, they probably got the best interior lineman in the entire draft, Ed Oliver, who could be, another Darnold in Los Angeles. I mean, same type of player. So this is a team that, improved themselves defensively with just the one pick. They picked a running back, Devin Singletary, out of Florida International, who 2 years ago had 26 rushing touchdowns. If they can get any type of productivity out of him, they'll have a complimentary offense. They also drafted a couple of tight ends to help out the young quarterback.
Well, let's stick with the more carnivores, the Carolina Panthers. I know Cam Newton. They even brought in a quarterback for Cam just in case, Will Grier out of West Virginia. But give me your feeling on the Panthers. Are they ready to rise again? Your thoughts?
Well, they had a solid team last year. When Cam got hurt, you can see the difference in their offense. They picked up Brian Burns to take over for Julius Pepper, who's retired at defensive end, and you said they picked Will Grier just in case Cam is not completely recovered from that shoulder injury.
Yeah.
This is a team that has all the tools in place. 2 years ago they won the division, and hopefully they can be back in the hunt again this year.
There's more carnivores, Big C, up north. The Windy City, the Chicago Bears. They were a team that added Khalil Mack, had a top defense in the league last year. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the Chicago Bears NFL draft.
Well, Khalil Mack, their number one draft pick. So you give up players for a guy who, you think about, the Oakland Raiders had a half sack more than what Khalil Mack had last season.
Yeah.
So that's a proven number one draft pick that they got. They picked up a running back, David Montgomery, because this is a team that is developed offensively.
Yeah.
And they're going to be better. Ken Trubisky continued to improve to help out the young players that they brought in. They only had 4 draft picks on the team.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll have a better team this year in Chicago. We'll see. Cincinnati Bengals, another carnivore. The Bengals up in the great Midwest, and I know they've had a nice run, playoff run with Marvin Lewis. He's no longer at the helm. Give me your feeling on what they're doing at Cincinnati. I know they like Jonah Williams, offensive tackle out of Alabama. I'm not so sold that he should have been there for a spot. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, I think that's a stretch with Jonah Williams. If you look at Cincinnati, they've had a history of drafting Alabama offensive linemen in the first round. I think they had more pressing needs, but they did pick up a couple offensive linemen in the draft. They picked up another tight end. Andy Dalton is going to feel some pressure from Ryan Finley, the quarterback out of North Carolina State, if he doesn't pick it up, and he can't expect to be there long if he doesn't win a playoff game.
That's a very good point. Cleveland, this is for you. There's a lot of thinking that the Cleveland Browns are on the right path. They have that swagger back. Then they haven't had it from the days of Slipe back in the day. I want to get your feeling on how you feel Cleveland is back in. Are they a playoff team, or are they still another year away? Give me Big C's thoughts on Cleveland's NFL draft.
They really had a questionable draft in Cleveland. You draft a cornerback, a safety, outside linebacker, an inside linebacker. They felt that they're set offensively. That's how Cleveland feels. But Cleveland's not going to sneak up on anybody. And when you think about Cleveland and the draft that they've had, you realize since they've come back into the NFL in 1999, they've never picked up the 5th-year option on a draft pick. They're the only team in the NFL since 1999 that has never picked up a 5th-year option on the quarterback. And the way things stand right now, everybody's gunning for Cleveland. You're not going to get an easy schedule. The chances are they may not be more than a 500 team this year.
Very good point. Let's finish up in the next 14 minutes. Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones doesn't take well to losing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, he doesn't, Charlton. But when you look at his draft is questionable. You go out and you get a couple players that nobody really knows about.
Yep.
Jerry Jones is always looking for economy at the draft pick. He's not always looking to upgrade his team. He got Amari Cooper last year, and he needed more help at wide receiver.
Yeah,
they picked up a wide receiver late, through free agency. But this is a team that they got to get Dak Prescott some more help. Yeah. The offensive line was down last year. Jerry likes to stay pat, and he's not going to play his young players this year.
Your friend John Elway up in Denver, give me your feelings. I want to get Big C's thoughts on the great John Elway, who hasn't had success since Peyton Manning stepped aside. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he got the best tight end in the draft, and Noah Fant out of Iowa. He also got a quarterback that he thinks may be able to help him down the road in Drew Lock out of Missouri. But he has, Joe Flacco in place, so that's basically a number one draft pick at quarterback. The defense is solid. They need some cornerback help in Denver. This is a work in progress. This is a team that was a disappointment last year.
Yep.
And I see them being in the middle of the pack in their division again.
Big C, let me get your thoughts on Detroit. Detroit's been starving for a champion. They've been starving for someone to at least bring back the days where they could at least expect a playoff run. Give me Big C's thoughts on what the Detroit Lions did in the NFL draft.
Well, they picked Hawkins, other tight end out of Iowa. But, Detroit has always been a mystery team in the NFC.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford has never lived up to his laurels and his billing, and everybody is giving him a pass year after year. They're always looking for an excuse. But this is a team. It's time for Matthew Stafford. If he doesn't play this year, they need to move off from him and look elsewhere. Austin Bryant could help them at receiver when they got rid of Tate, and no one understood that happening. Travis Flanagan,
yeah.
Running back, that they need some offensive firepower. But this is a team that, with Patricia being the coach, it's time for him to produce.
In Lambeau Country, you have so many great players in history of the Green Bay Packers. Give me Big C's thoughts on how Green Bay did in this year's NFL draft.
Well, Green Bay is, this is a team that, you're going to be limited salary cap-wise because of the contract that Aaron Rodgers has. They really needed some tight end help, which they did not get in the first round, which I thought that would be a direction that they would go.
Yeah.
But, they stayed pat. They looked at, pass rusher Gary out of Michigan, who did not live up to his billing in college.
Nope.
Maybe they could get more out of him in Green Bay, that he's getting paid legally now. But they missed the boat on the draft, and they didn't get the players that I thought that they should.
Yeah.
They needed a tight end. They drafted one in the third round. Maybe that could be some help for that offense.
The Houston Texans, as we go down south, I know they have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league and a solid defense. Give me Big C's thoughts on what the Houston Texans did in the NFL draft.
Well, they got some help for Deshaun Watson. They needed an offensive lineman first and foremost. So they went out and got one in the draft. It's a matter of, can they get some more help for him? We've seen the receiving core be solid in Houston with Hopkins, one of the best receivers in the NFL. Deshaun Watson, if he can stay healthy,
yep.
This team can take leaps and bounds. They won the division. They're going to have a stern test from the Baltimore Colts. Well, not the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
That lets you know how old I am.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking about the Baltimore Colts.
Well, you've been to the doctor. I understand they took a lot of blood out of you. Give me your feeling on the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck had a lot of luck last year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a team that has built well through the draft over the past couple of years. And when you think of where they are, they got one of the better young receivers in the draft. Paris Campbell out of Ohio State played with Dwayne Haskins. They got the outside linebacker help. They had the Rookie of the Year last year. And so they went heavy on the defensive side. When you saw what their offense had done last year once Andrew Luck got back in the rhythm, and they picked up some more defensive players because you saw what Kansas City did to them in the playoffs. That's where they needed to improve, and they did during the draft.
As we go down south to the heat and humidity of Jacksonville, Florida, I know that Jacksonville, they still had that 10-point cushion going into the fourth quarter in the AFC Championship game at New England, and then things turned around. They're trying to get back there, Big C. Give me Big C's thoughts on the Jacksonville Jaguars NFL draft.
Well, you got to look at what they did in free agency when they went out and got their quarterback. That was the number one thing that they needed to do. They got their quarterback. And so the draft was just a building point. They probably got the second best rush in the draft when they got Allen to go along with Calais Campbell, on the outside. So that defense can get back to the defense that they had 2 years ago. They still got Jalen Ramsey on the back end. So it's just about maturing of the young players, but I think they really upgraded their pass rush when they picked up Allen out of Kentucky.
Kansas City, Missouri, talking about a storm and a lot of negative things happening with that great organization. Give me Big C's thoughts on what Andy Reid would do with the Kansas City Chiefs. Your thoughts?
When you look at Kansas City and the offense that they had, they went out and got a receiver because I don't think that Kareem Hunt will be there this coming year. I see him being suspended by the NFL for a minimum of 10 games for his actions and stuff. But, you know, this offense is run through Patrick Mahomes. We see it could be running back by committee.
Yep.
The draft did help them some, but they had players in place already, and they just needed to do something on defense. They did that in a trade for Frank Clark, which was basically their number one draft pick.
Give me Big C's thoughts on the West Coast, the L.A. Chargers. You know, they play in the smallest stadium in the NFL universe, but they have a team that got so close to getting everything they wanted last year in the playoffs. Give me Big C's thoughts on the L.A. Chargers in their draft.
You know, what was surprising about the Chargers is that they went defense again. You know, they selected a safety. And as strong as they were last year with Derwin James on the corner, they bring in another secondary person to help them out. So this team will be even better. They will challenge Kansas City for the division lead. You know, you also got the defensive tackle, Jerry Tillery, out of Notre Dame, who I thought was one of the more underrated defensive linemen in the draft.
I agree.
You get an outside linebacker. You also get a quarterback to back up, you know, Rivers, Easton Stick out of Eastern Washington. Well, excuse me, out of North Dakota State.
Yeah.
This is a kid with championship college pedigree. This is the kid that took over after Carson Wentz left.
Yep. I think those are good choices. The L.A. Rams, last year's Super Bowl, they laid an egg. What will the Rams do in the second largest market in the country to bring football back to prominence? Big C, give me your thoughts on the Rams.
Well, this is the team that has to put a lot together after losing the Super Bowl. You know, they have the young quarterback Goff, so they have a lot of cap space. They didn't bring back all the free agents that they had last year. They went out and made some moves and drafted a couple of secondary personnel because that was their Achilles heel when you got to the Super Bowl. So, you know, when you look at the Rams, Wade Phillips can put these guys together and mold them, and they can come impact players right away in Los Angeles.
Give me your thoughts as we swing south to Miami with the sandy beaches, even though they play up in Fort Lauderdale. What are your thoughts on the Miami Dolphins and Big C's NFL draft?
Well, you know, the Miami Dolphins, they got Christian Wilkins, highly touted defensive end, two-time national champ out of Clemson.
Yeah.
They made a trade for Josh Rosen, so they got their quarterback in round two, basically. This is a team that now has to put all the pieces together. I don't know if Rosen will start. You have Fitzpatrick down there already, but you got two integral parts that could be a long-term fix for the Miami Dolphins.
We go up to the land of the Great Lakes, the Minnesota Vikings. That's Bud Grant territory. Give me your feeling on what they'll do. We know they had that heartbreak, and they thought they would be good enough to get to the Super Bowl 2 years ago after that miraculous win over the Saints, but it seems to have been a little bit downhill since then. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they took a step back last year when you look at the Minnesota Vikings. You know, they signed your cousin, and I think that hurt the rest of the team emotionally.
Yeah.
But they went out. They needed some help on the offensive line. They got Garrett Bradbury, the center out of North Carolina State.
Yeah.
They took a tight end, Herb Smith, out of Alabama. And, you know, you think about it, his dad played tight end with the New Orleans Saints and was a number one draft pick also.
Yeah.
They took a running back because that's where they had some trouble, Alexander Mattson.
Yeah.
You know, they went heavy on the defense and offensive line because those are the positions you have to shore up in the NFL. But it all comes down to your cousin at quarterback because he's never, you know, had a winning record against a team with a winning record.
Give me Obi-Wan Kenobi, the coach for the New England Patriots, the great Tom Brady. They have so much to hang their hat on. Will they be like Thanos and try to get another Infinity Stone, Big C? Give me Big C's thoughts on the New England Patriots and Belichick's NFL draft.
Well, when you look at the New England Patriots, I mean, all you can think about is genius with Belichick.
Yeah.
He always finds an integral need for the team. When you think about last year's draft, when he took a running back in the first round, something he had never done, that running back was a 1,000-yard rusher in an integral part of a Super Bowl win. This year, he takes a wide receiver for the first time in the draft in the first round, Carey out of Arizona State.
Yeah.
A need for Tom Brady to help him out, to get the ball down the field. So I like what New England has did. They picked up a couple offensive linemen. You know, that's an area that they're always building on. Skarnecki's probably the best offensive line coach in the NFL when you look at what he's worked with over the years. I see New England not taking a dip at all during this season coming up.
Give me your feelings, New Orleans. They have to be heartbroken after last year's no call in a playoff game versus the Rams. Give me Big C's thoughts on what's going on in New Orleans. And just because you get a lot of beats from it, it doesn't mean you're going to be happy with their thoughts, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, New Orleans is a team that had to make some moves. You know, they lost Ingram. during the offseason, the free agency. He ended up in Baltimore, which is going to help out that offense. But you still got Drew Brees. You know, this is a team, as long as Drew Brees is throwing the ball, they're going to be competitive. They have to pick up some defensive line help.
Yeah.
That's where they needed to be. And, you know, in the secondary, they were a little weak there. They picked up a couple of defensive backs, a corner and a safety. They picked up a tight end because they lost Watson to retirement. They were thin on the draft pick line, though.
Yep, we like that, Big C. In the next 7 minutes, New York Giants, I know the land of the Big Apple. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Give me Big C's thoughts on the New York Giants draft, Big C.
Well, based on all the draft experts, the New York Giants got the best quarterback in the draft.
In the universe. Yeah.
You know, bro. And, you know, I watched some film on this kid, you know, a couple of days after the draft. You know, I saw him in the Clemson game.
Yeah.
And he was a guy who never completed a pass more than 20 yards downfield. There was a lot of run after the catch with his receivers, but Daniel Jones, this is a guy who has to face Dwayne Haskins for the next decade in the NFL. And it will let you know whether the Giants made the right move or not. You know, they also got the big defensive tackle out of Clemson, Lawrence, you know, where you needed more of an edge rusher. So you got two guys, good decent college players, but are they going to be the stopgap that you need in the NFL? Only time will tell.
Let's go across the Hudson. The Jets, Jets. They're also sharing the same stadium. Give me Big C's thoughts on the New York Jets and what they did with the NFL draft.
Well, you said the Jets. I think that stands for just in the season soon. you know, when you get to the Jets, you know, they got Quentin Williams, and I'm not sure if that's what they needed. They already had the Williams out of USC.
Yeah.
They already had one big defensive tackle. You needed some outside edge.
Yeah.
But the Jets went to offense and defensive line. They picked a couple of cornerbacks and an outside linebacker. I didn't see them getting help for Sam Darnold. You know, I thought they would draft a receiver or two, and they missed the boat there. And even at they got Le'Veon Bell at running back, but I thought they would at least draft a receiver or two in the draft.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on your most favorite coach right now, the Oakland Raiders with the great John Gruden. And give me your feeling on what the Oakland Raiders did. Are they going to build a team the way they did way back in the day under Davis? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, you got Mike Mayock, who's a draft expert in the East, your general manager.
Yeah.
So you think about the Raiders, basically, you know, in their mind, they have a can't miss draft. You know, you get a defensive lineman, Ceylon Farrell out of Clemson. This is a guy with championship pedigree. You get a secondary and you get a running back.
Yep.
So, you know, these guys have to produce for you right away.
Yep.
When you look at the Raiders, all three of those number one draft picks have to start. You got to start them right away. You can't wait. And so this is the proof in the pudding for Mayock and Gruden. I think they only have 2 years left on their contracts before they have to part ways in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you would think so. Philadelphia, the Eagles, give me your feeling. They won a Super Bowl just a couple of years ago, but the quarterback's gone, and they're going to stick with Carson Wentz. But can they really expect more than 10 games out of him, Big C? Give me Big C's thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles NFL draft.
Well, you know, they really had a solid draft when you think about their first three picks. Andre Dillard, probably the best offensive lineman in the draft out of Washington State. Miles Sanders, a running back at Penn State. He backed up Saquon Barkley and actually had a better year last year than what Saquon Barkley had the previous year at Penn State. J.J. Arkansas White, a big wide receiver out of Stanford. This guy is 6'6", a former basketball player. So he's going to create a tremendous target for whoever's quarterbacking in Philadelphia. I see them improving themselves offensively.
We have 6 Infinity Stones left. The Pittsburgh Steelers, also out of Pennsylvania. They don't have the steel curtain anymore, but give me your feeling on what they're going to do in Pittsburgh with Tomlin, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they feel the need right away. You know, they went out and got Devin Bush after the injury to the linebacker that they had a couple of years ago. They've been wanting another linebacker. Now they got that in Devin Bush. You know, they also needed a cornerback. They went out and got one. But they also picked up a running back. But the biggest push for them is going to be a receiver. Can Dante Johnson fill the shoes of Brown, who is gone? And he's from that same conference of Mac. And the Steelers, of any team that we've seen in the NFL over the past several years, they find wide receivers to fit their scheme.
Yeah, well, on the West Coast where I got my start, the San Francisco 49ers, Montana to Rice. What will the 49ers do this year? Give me Big Steve's thoughts on the 49ers NFL draft picks?
Well, they got the famed tweeter, Nick Bosa. You know, everybody says he's the best pure pass rusher in the draft. I think he's the best injury-prone defensive lineman in the draft.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years in college, he could not stay healthy playing against college offensive linemen. Now he got to play against grown men every week. They got an excellent receiver, Debo Samuels, out of South Carolina. If their quarterback can stay healthy in Jimmy Garoppolo, then they got a deep threat for him. They picked up another tight end. I don't know why they needed a tight end. They had an all-pro tight end last year. But, you know, I'm not overblown by San Francisco's draft. Maybe they did a lot more in free agency than what we knew about.
Let's fly up north to the great Northwest. There's a lot of fish, Big C, in Seattle, Pete. You know, Pete knows how to do his thing, Pete Carroll. Give me your feelings on where the Seattle Seahawks will go. They just locked up Russell Wilson. He's in the saddle. Give me Big C's thoughts on the Seattle Seahawks NFL draft.
Well, the Seattle Seahawks, you know, they drafted for need. They picked up a wide receiver to really help out Russell Wilson's big contract. Now they got a big play receiver in Metcalf out of Mississippi. I think will really open up that underneath game for the rest of the receivers, because now you have that deep threat. We don't know what type of routes he runs, but we know he can run a straight line. They also picked up an offensive tackle. That's something that Russell Wilson really needs. When you're paying your quarterback that type of money, you have to get him some offensive line help, and they did that. They picked up some wide receivers and DBs and linebackers. Seattle's always been a team that's run through their linebackers. They picked up 3 of them in the draft, and I think you'll see instant impact from that position.
In the next 4 minutes, Tampa Bay also down south, Big C. What will the Buccaneers do to get back to their form that they thought they would be at the last season? Give me Big C's thoughts on the NFL draft for the Buccaneers.
They really need Jameis Winston to grow up.
Yeah.
You know, they got the best inside linebacker in the draft, Devin White out of LSU. This guy will pencil in from day one. They picked up a couple of solid cornerbacks, which they really needed. They also got some other defensive end help at Mike Edwards. But this is a team that, you know, offensively, they scored with anybody during the regular season.
Yep.
And I think by the first 4 picks that they had in the draft, they went all defense. That should soar up that side of the ball.
Last 2 minutes, Big C, Tennessee Titans. We know what the NFL looked like down there for the draft day. Give me Big C's thoughts on them good old boys down south, the Tennessee Titans.
You know, if the Tennessee Titans could play like the city of Nashville, Charlton,
yeah.
on draft day, they won't have any problems whatsoever. I mean,
amazing.
They put on a party that the lights that the NFL has never seen.
Yeah.
But they picked Jeffrey Simmons. He was the most physical specimen of all defensive linemen. I know he had the horrific knee injury, and if he can come back from that early in the season, get inserted in the lineup, they're going to have some big arms on the defensive line. They also got a receiver, you know, A.J. Brown, you know, who will help Mariota if he can stay healthy. He needs to learn how to stay in the pocket and get rid of the ball. They went mainly on defense in Tennessee. They know they have the offensive firepower. They needed to shore up their defense.
Last 30 seconds, the last Infinity Stone, Washington Redskins, nation's capital. I hope that Joe Theismann will give up his jersey so Haskins can wear it. Give me Big C's thoughts on the nation's capital, the Washington Redskins. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, really there's no reason that Joe Theismann shouldn't give up his jersey. The Washington Redskins have won 3 Super Bowls. All those other quarterback numbers have been worn, number 11 and number 12. They won. They've been worn by other players, so there's no reason for Joe Theismann to give it up. Dwayne Haskins is the best deep ball thrower that was drafted.
Yep.
And, you know, this is something that the New York Giants is going to have to look at for the next decade. They got the best 2 number 1 draft picks in the draft when they got Haskins and Montez Sweat, who fell to them in the draft. They also got Bryce Hubbard, a tremendous speedy running back out of Stanford. Terry McLaurin, a receiver that played with Haskins at Ohio State. So when you think about this offense, and they picked up a couple more offensive linemen because that's where they were injured at last year, this is an offense that was the best in NFC for the first 7 games of the season until they started getting the injury bug.
Yeah,
if they stay healthy, they'll win 12 games in the NFC East this year, Charles.
Well, I like the way they look, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, as we talked about earlier in the show, I would hope that the broadcasters on all these major sporting events have a little more tact about them and stop calling out these officials by name. They're there to do a job. You're making a showcase out of them. Let them officiate the game. talk about the players.
I agree very much. So it's all fair in love and war. Hopefully sports can bring everybody together. Speaking of coming together, you can too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.